Hi everyone, I'm Edwin and this is a video about Foozloos, Fancy Free. I wasn't sure if I was going to be there live for this year's post-mortem, but I wanted to share this video anyway. It's a playthrough of the game 1 week into the game jam before it looked like this. And I thought it would be fun to talk over it and share my thoughts and ideas. So this was the fourth time for me participating in the Robot Party Jam, and this one was slightly different. I have a short list of ideas for games that I still want to make, and one of those was a Tetris platformer. And because I knew I had less time than previous years, I just grabbed the idea off the shelf and tried to make it fit with scramblets. For the main part of the game, the blocks, I figured what if they were old shipping containers full of discarded scramblets? What if they were such a failure, entire shipments had to be dumped into the sea? And I was happy to see that The Return of the Scramblets, an interactive documentary by Evan Donuts, also had a similar idea. In my head, my game sort of fits within the canon of that documentary, sort of. My idea of a Tetris platformer back at the start of the game jam was to have both parts of that happen simultaneously. So the platforming and the Tetrising. So you would play Tetris while one of the scramblets would make their way across at the same time. And I started with just Grimt as the character. He would jump and glide using his apple bag as a parachute. And he would either make it across or die in the process, usually pretty quickly because the bridge wasn't ready yet. So yeah, that kind of sucked. So I opted to split it into two phases. The building phase and the crossing phase. There's something cool about planning out a certain strategy and then seeing if your plans work out. And it also added a short moment of relief in between strategizing and playing. But I quickly discovered that having just Grimt was still boring. If you had two blocks stacked on top of each other as an obstacle, he would always fail. You couldn't get over it, and you would have to start over. There was basically no room for error. So as a test, I summoned multiple Grimts, or circles at the time, to see what would happen if they could stack on top of each other. And then it clicked. They could help each other get across, and I was able to set a number as a goal instead of all or nothing, 0 or 1. But then I realized I had to draw a lot of scramblets. Having multiple Grimts didn't make much sense, and I didn't really have the time to draw and design like 61 scramblets. So I looked at the roster and I thought, well, the Foozloos would be a much better fit. So I scrapped all the other scramblets and suddenly the story made more sense too. The Foozloos themselves might be an environmental hazard. The public endowment of summoning Foozloos would make more sense as a thing to shed. It's not perfect. It would make more sense if the Foozloos were summoned from the forest instead of being stuck in containers, but it was good enough. I worked for 3 days straight, and what you see here is the result after week 1. And if you played the game, you will notice that not a lot has changed between this prototype and the final game. I only added the final 2 levels with lava blocks and the ending sequence later, which wasn't written at the time yet. Obviously the music wasn't there either, it's only here through the magic of editing. But this video without sound was the video that I sent to Lamb, who did the music. After he asked for a reference, I sent him this song by The Sword, which I obviously cannot play here for copyright reasons, along with this mood board to give him a sense of the vibe of the game. And he was off to the races and started jamming. We talked a bit before the game jam if he was interested in collaborating, and he was, but he wasn't sure about how much he would be able to do, which was fine. I thought I would only need 2 songs, one for the cutscenes and one for the gameplay. So after he gave me the thumbs up, I didn't hear from him for like 2 weeks, which was fine, and then he came back with the demo about 2.5 minutes long. And it was exactly the right vibe, and the tempo even lined up with the pace of the blocks falling down. I told him it was perfect and asked if he could add just a little bit at the front as a lead-in, and a little bit more at the end that would build into something wilder. So another week passed and he came back with this 10-minute long epic song and was exactly tuned to the length and intensity of each level. It was more than I could ever expect. So unfortunately he couldn't join me for this post-mortem, but I'm incredibly grateful, and I think this soundtrack has some of the best Lamb material we've heard. I'm also really happy that it got the Outstanding Original Soundtrack award. Or as Lamb wrote to me in his response, "Oh shit, hell yeah." Speaking of lambing, this game was inspired by lemmings, even though I kind of stumbled into the idea of it. I've always liked the idea of lemmings and I played it a lot as a kid, but the game makes some weird gameplay choices, I think. There's a lot of waiting involved in between interacting with the lemmings individually, and it gets pretty cluttered when a lot of lemmings are in the same place. I think having the Foozloos be uninteractable kind of solves that problem. The response to the game has been incredible, and a lot of people have been saying that the gameplay loop is strong enough that it could be expanded into a standalone indie game. And I really appreciate those comments, so thank you all for the kind words. I do feel like out of the 4 games I made for the game jams, this is the most focused and immediately clear and fun. It was also fun to see how quickly it hooked certain people.
Okay. In the interest of time, probably hold okay. We're only 15 minutes in. We're doing good. In the interest of time, my chat says probably give up. Right.
Every year I write down the lessons I learn. I have to admit the list is getting pretty long, but here are 3 new lessons I learned this year. Number 1. Your first idea is not always the best idea, so be prepared to shift and evolve. Number 2. Stop trying to do everything yourself. Number 3. Don't double dip. I did art for Vincent's game at the same time, and while it was rewarding and fun to do, it did turn out to be a bit too much for me. On top of working a full-time job, switching jobs, buying a new apartment, making my own game, and yeah, I probably won't be doing that in the future. And that's kind of all I got. Maybe I'll be there live to answer questions. If not, you can still reach me on the Discord, and I'll look at the VOD and try to answer questions sometime later, if there are any. I hope that was interesting in some way. I hope the postmortem was good as a whole. I'm sure it was. I believe there's one more after me, looking at the schedule, so have fun with that one, and see you next year. Bye bye.